teachprogress.org's Learn, Teach, Progress. To orient you once again, what we started with is why bowling can help you accept the recent election results. And it's a psychological theory called meaning maintenance theory. Meaning maintenance theory says that when you have a violation of meaning in one category, for example, maybe you think there's a rising fascist revolution to destroy your democracy. I don't know why you would think that, maybe because you studied Mussolini, but then you can help yourself feel better by compensating fluidly. That is to say, making meaning in another area. Like if you took some black balls and threw them at some white pinheads with red ties, also known as bowling. That's meaning maintenance theory. And it can be very powerful. I know because I did that yesterday and I went from very, very, very sad. Also, a fun fact, you get better at bowling if you have a few beers.
That's fair. I would say
Yeah, a
physical
lot.
activity helps.
It is a lot of you can't help others unless you help yourself. Of like the plane is going down, you have to put on your own mask before you help your child with their mask, and that is
community is meaningful. So if you have friends to go bowling with, that is helpful as well. I went with my brother and my wife and my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law was very upset, and I was like, I punched a cabinet when I heard her father had voted and like been lying to her for a long time about essentially not supporting the rise of fascism. So some cost effects. What we do is we look at errors in thinking, and an example of an error in thinking, and it's not always an error, but it is a way that we end up tricking ourselves in the long term, so it's important to be aware of them, is a sunk cost. If I've invested too much to quit now, this happens in war, this happens in business, this happens in love. People who are together for a couple of decades aren't working anymore, so they go to marriage counseling because they want to hold on to the marriage, even though they both know it'd be better if they just ended it there.
Does it happen in bowling?
Yeah, it does. It's when you go up there and you keep trying to hit the stupid pins, and you know what you should do though, and this is how you win at bowling: try to throw it in the gutter. You'll win every time. Personal attack. Yes.
You just lower the bar. Just lower the bar average.
Quickly. Merv was talking about blue screen. My headset went trickle error. It's been shut down. It seems the battery's dead. For some reason, it got 3% really quickly. Awkward. So I think there's something wrong with it. So
I'm sorry I put a curse on your headset.
Yeah, you're a witch. You're a witch, Mirko.
I should be burned at the stake.
You're a wizard,
seriously concerned about actual witch hunts.
Blame Mirko. This is perfect.
It's true.
Yeah.
I did put a
like
witch's
when
curse.
the vice presidential candidate says that
Anyway,
married
I'll catch you
men
guys
should get
later.
extra votes.
See you later,
Take care, Andy.
Yeah.
That seems to be a problem. Personal attacks. Attacking the person, not the argument. And like I just said that the vice president, made an argument. Did I call him anything mean or weird or off-putting or inhuman? No. That would be a personal attack. Also, it's kind of obvious, so I don't need to. So, and here's the thing. It's very easy to go to a personal attack. One kind of personal attack that I find particularly galling is tone policing.
Oh, yeah.
Because it seems like they're not attacking you for who you are, but they are. They're attacking you for who you are because it's how you're presenting what they're hearing. And so when they start saying, oh, that wasn't respectful enough. Well, sometimes people don't want to be all that respectful when they're telling you, stop choking me.
Yeah, speaking of which, where is that penguin?
Oh, my friend Penguin. I don't think he's available right now. But I hope he's running a politics room. This is a non-partisan room as far as I am humanly capable of it.
Which is
Well,
much?
today maybe not so much.
I'll
Today
spend
maybe
time
not
with
so
you,
much.
C-Sec, if you want. I'm not giving you my OnlyFans on the first date, though.
Whoa, you give those out? Why am I paying so? Okay.
How did you like the ride yesterday?
It's okay.
The
Yeah.
red
All right.
wave.
I want my $69 back.
We're trying
Yeah,
to
I
do a
mean-
separate thing. We're not talking politics right now. We
We're
are
not
going
doing politics, but
Oh,
yeah.
Yep.
I see.
on to. But
Only
what we are
works
doing,
in your
CSIC,
favor.
is we're what? Oh no, we've been doing this for like 7 weeks in a nonpartisan way.
Yeah, look, we have slides and everything.
Where'd it go?
All right.
That was good.
Now we're
Don't
on
worry.
to hey Max Paula. False dichotomy. It's either this or that, and no other options. So I think we've gone back.
Oh, yep. Sorry.
That's okay. Learned helplessness. Nothing I do makes a difference, and it never has. A mental state where repeated failures lead to the belief that one cannot change their situation. Now, learned helpless. Yeah, we have, and I believe that this is a common problem that keeps people from de-radicalizing. Like the goal here is to teach people the ways that they can be tricked, because the only way to de-radicalize is not to tell them you're wrong, but to help them see the way they are being tricked and they de-radicalize themselves, right? But learned helplessness makes us feel like in our communities we can't help people. They're lost. They have no chance. There's nothing we can do because nothing we've done before has made a difference. But I can tell you, as someone myself who has been de-radicalized, people who were helping me think more clearly were leaving for me the breadcrumbs that I would need to get out of being radicalized. So even though it seems like it may not be working now, if you're helping someone think more clearly, then you're helping them become de-radicalized over time. You're part of that, even if you don't see it immediately. Moving the goalposts. Oh, do you have a question, Matt?
Yeah, can we go back to that?
Oh,
The last slide.
boop.
Sure.
You talk about radicalized.
There's all sorts of other learned helplessness.
Yeah, so I know you said we don't be politicized on this one, but and I don't want to necessarily be political, but the topic is political. But a lot of the people that I talk to that view the U.S. debate or the U.S. Election in Canada that are more in line with Trump's side of things say that the left has become radicalized, and that's why that happened. So is there truth to that? Do you believe that this sort of like what you were talking about, the radicalization, was an issue with the government in the left? Is this too much of a contentious issue? This might be, actually, now that I'm saying it, it might be. Maybe I should just
I do want to say that there's always, both sides do have some radicalization. Though you got to keep in mind that we can't think like, hey, universal health care, that's not a radical idea. You know, housing the homeless, that's not a radical idea. You know, having empathy for others, that's not a radical idea. We need to keep in mind what is radical, and it's radical behaviors can cause harm to communities. And if it's not causing harm and building them up, I mean, I don't believe that's radical.
Okay, I'll leave it at that because I don't want.
There are real harms, like Marco pointed out, that can occur wherever you are on the political spectrum. However, as a organizational anthropologist, I'll put that hat on right now. I can tell you, we know for sure that the best organizations and the best communities and the best countries are those that are least authoritarian and most willing to help one another. Mm-hmm. So the further you can get away from authoritarianism and the closer you can get to a community that's willing to help one another, the better your society is. which means the more rules that are strongly enforced and the more people are fighting for their own, the worse things get. So that is the direction of radicalness that I think Mirko's talking about. And every political ideology label can lead to radicals, people who are willing to not help one another, people are willing to be authoritarian in their actions. There's nothing about the particular label that keeps you from being that. In fact, if I give you an infinite good to move towards, you may be infinitely willing to accept the bad to get to that good. So it can happen anywhere and for whatever reason.
Great point.
Yeah. All right. Moving goalposts, changing the criteria as soon as they're met. So a smart person trying to learn to become smarter and think clearly is going to say, okay, if I find out that this is true, and it would violate my beliefs, and therefore I would change my beliefs. However, the way most people work is if I find out this is true, then I will find out something different that has to be true so I can hold on to my beliefs. And that's moving the goalpost, changing the criteria as soon as they're met. And you can see this happen. I used to spend a lot of time talking to young Earth creationists. And as soon as you dealt with one thing, they would bring up another. The same thing with flat earthers, of course. But flat earthers are so, I mean, it's just...
Sorry, what's
I'm pretty
a
sure
young
they're
Earth
trolling me.
What's a young Earth creationist? And the Earth is flat. Everybody knows that. But what's
Yeah,
a,
the
what's
Earth is flat. Everyone knows that. It's also 7,000 years old.
Yeah.
Is that similar to the effect that the mainstream people have when it comes to UFO evidence? That if there's a piece of evidence, they have to deny it? Is that true?
Burnt toast. There's no evidence that there is anything outside of the globe that stands on top
That's
of our flat Earth.
That's how a flat Earth
You meant
opinion as well.
disc. That's okay.
Yeah, the disc of the
That's
Earth.
kind of about. Never mind. I see
has
exactly.
the firmament over it.
I see exactly what you're
But
talking
also
about in
it's
you
on the
right
turtle.
now. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, it is on the turtle for sure.
The question is, and a lot of people don't know, what gender is the turtle?
Yeah.
Republicans definitely want to know.
Non-binary.
I shouldn't
That
have
would
gone
piss them
there.
off. It's non-binary.
Well, I think it's actually a serious topic, but whatever. It doesn't matter.
Foes?
What?
Yeah, the reason people don't care is because they don't know how that matters to their
They
life.
don't understand it. I guess that's
It doesn't like when you can tell them how it changes the price of groceries, it'll matter, right?
Yeah. Well, if you realize that we're being fed off like farm animals, then I guess it's
Okay.
a different story.
So we went from the vague evidence that does exist that there may be a phenomena that fly we don't understand to we're actually the cattle for the lizard people.
Well,
and
I just
that
want
would
the
be
truth.
called radicalization.
I just want the truth, and we'll see.
Okay.
Because
Martin
Trump
Bailey,
said that he's
my
going to release
friends.
the UFO files.
Martin Bailey, yes.
Don't bring the lizard people into this.
Let's bring in the Martin Bailey. All right, so Martin Bailey, invisibly
knew
going
how
from
close to the truth you
indefensible
were?
to agreeable. So if you say all of humanity is a food crop for the lizard people, and then you say, actually, all I want is the truth.
All I want is
that
the
would
truth,
be
yes.
a mot. And then you're like, all I want is the truth. That's all I'm saying. Right? That is
No, I
not
want
all you're saying.
acknowledgement, yeah.
You're saying that you also have the truth, and it's not job wacko.
No, what I've got is a pretty good theory.
Hold
I got
on.
a pretty good theory.
Can you go?
but
Can you go
whatever.
back to that one? I'm not understanding.
Okay, let's go back to Martin Bailey. Yeah.
Okay.
I like that EMAT's asking questions. I think it's pretty useful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you start with an argument that is like a wide argument, let's say someone came in here and said we should deport everyone that's here illegally and the people who came under special visas as well, which is a pretty big haul. That is a crazy big action. And then you start pushing them on it. Isn't that going to be bad for the economy? Isn't that going to hurt a lot of people? And they're saying, all I'm saying is that the immigration system needs to be fixed. Right? That all I'm saying action where you back off from the original statement to say, I'm just saying is all, that is a Mott and a Bailey. So you fall back to the defensible position whenever the threat comes. And then you go back to your wide, crazy argument as soon as no one's threatening that argument.
We should appoint someone to tell us the truth then. I guess that's
like burnt toast. Like burnt toast is saying what we really need is just someone to. We just need to find the truth. That's his Bailey. Everyone's going to agree we should find the truth, but his mot is lizard people are harvesting us. And then he'll go right back to lizard people are harvesting us.
That's just a theory, but I'm putting it out there. Yeah, of course.
A burnt toast.
I'm sure you have some theories of your own. That's fine.
I do, and I write them down in peer-reviewed journal articles, and I make my students learn them. I recommend you get a PhD if you want to do this.
I'm sorry that you have to do all that. Anyway,
I know I don't. It's kind of like an entertainment thing.
Well,
hey, do you want me to do with
when the lizard people take over? You can write a book saying lizard people don't exist by Dr. Say. Yeah, of course.
I think that's a good idea. All right, hasty generalization. Seeing one lizard person enslave a colony of humans and assuming that they're going to enslave them all.
They will. They will. Of course, you realize that lizard people is really a metaphor.
Is it a metaphor? I thought it was. I thought it was a metaphor for Jewish people, and I thought they were anti-Semitic.
No, I don't think they're actually lizards. I don't think they're actually lizards. They're extra dimensional, though.
Are they still reptiles, though?
Well,
who knows? I don't know.
If they're anything like you, they sure are extra.
I don't know what that means. Whatever.
Hasty generalization.
It's just a slap in the face, I guess. Whatever. Who cares?
Oh. Assuming what's true for a few is true for all. Very often, we will use a hasty generalization to understand groups of people we don't understand, right? Or we're not a part of. For example, someone might use what they know about burnt toast as an icon for everyone that wants to know about UFOs, when in fact not all of them are burnt out hippies. But it's like your assumption because
I
that's the one
I see what you mean about
that.
assumptions. I can see you're demonstrating assumptions right now. That's cool.
Burnt toast is in fact a legend.
I am a legend.
Appeal to unjustifiable authority. And this is the difficulty. Like a lot of us appeal to authority we don't know how to justify. And so we don't know which authorities to believe. And we don't know how to question those authorities if they get something wrong. Instead, we either appeal to our own authorities and deny the others, or just deny all authority and not notice that we're actually taking on some other authority when we do that. So, someone in power said it, so it must be true. And that isn't how we can live our lives this way, as many people do. But if we consider what the justification is for the authority, then we can have an honest understanding. We won't trick ourselves into just believing whatever someone tells us.
Actually, yeah. Okay, I get this. So, just recently, my friend who's, now again, I'm in Canada. So, but in Canada, we have people that support Trump. In the United States is pretty influential, especially if you're close to the border. So, recently, my friend, today, actually, we were talking, and the hell was that? But
that is Mirko's system, and she needs to turn off the bloops on her Discord.
I have no idea.
Maybe quit Discord.
Shit, I gotta go.
I don't know if it's Discord. Okay.
But
It's fine.
Shit. Okay, yeah. So my friend was talking about FEMA and talking about how there was a report of a guy he watches on YouTube, where a guy he saw saying that FEMA had skipped houses that were supporting Trump. And so I said, that seems very unlikely that FEMA would do something like that. So I looked it up, and there are some floating reports that say that this happened, but FEMA has definitely denied it. And FEMA, from what I understand, wouldn't do something like that. So if it is true, I would imagine, to put any kind of truth to it, it would be a disgruntled employee with a little bit of power telling an employee or two not to do that.
Right. And if you go and try and say, oh, I saw it because I saw it on the Daily Mail, right?
That's exactly it, right? The power, it's true now, right?
Right, because what
I find different, though, is that when people say, when I say, well, I'm making this political. I know, I'm sorry, but this is just kind of the way it is right now, like with current events. But when someone says, well, Trump was found liable for sexual assault, he's like, yeah, but hold on. You got to dig a little deeper and find out the actual facts. Okay, so you do that for that stuff, but when it comes to the FEMA stuff, it's like, no, this one guy said it on the news.
Yeah. Also, if you dig deeper, you find that the thing that he was convicted for is the thing that many other women accused him of, and the thing that he admitted to doing on tape before he was running for president. Like before many of the accusations, he admitted to doing this on tape. There's no question in any reasonable person's mind, which is why even people who were on the side of Trump at that trial voted to find him liable.
It's interesting with this one that it's very interesting that because it's almost subjective. Mm-hmm. It's almost subjective in the way that, like, if you the way we justify
the authorities that we appeal to is not subjective, but it is individualized. And the reason it's individualized, because subjectivity means that you don't have a way to objectify your reasoning. And some people use purely subjective criteria where they're like, well, that's just what my people do. Other people try and attach the authority to science where there's observable data. Now, when you can observe facts and those attach to the authority that you're running from, that becomes a justification that's much deeper than this is just what my people are doing, instead of tribalism. Pure tribalism is only justifiable if your goal is moving up in the tribe.
So this goes down to tribalism.
Or breaking from tribalism and going into something where you're attached to reality, and that's justifiable.
Okay. Yeah. No, I hear you.
Yep. Cool. Gambler's fallacy. Past outcomes affect future probability. Cognitive bias that occurs when someone believes that the probability of an event changes after a series of outcomes. So a lot of people will gamble and they'll say, okay, it's 50-50 if I put my money down on the roulette wheel. And so I'll just double my money every time if I lose. I must win, right? Because I've got only like a 1 in 1,000 shot of losing after 10 times, except that's not true. After the 9th time of failing, you don't have a 999 to 1 chance that the 10th time is going to be successful. You still only have that 50-50 shot.
Is that supposed to be, sorry. Yeah. Is that supposed to be an EFFECT?
Oh, I have no clue. I can't read any. I can neither.
Up.
Oh, you mean outcomes effect, not affect. Yes.
That'll be 850. You can send it.
I don't know how to spell anything though. I'm
correct. Affect is
all right. Yeah.
Is it wrong?
Affect is correct.
Ah, damn it.
The robot is telling me it's affect, but the robot can lie.
Right.
Is it effect or affect? I think
they're two different things. Though.
No, it's affect.
That's affect.
Affect?
EFFECT, yeah.
It doesn't deter. If it was the other way around, it would be the opposite of. It would mean it would.
Okay, so here's the deal. Affect, which refers to one's inclinations, feelings, passions, or dispositions, like it's a psychological state, or in order to act as though having those things, that is what affect meant. But we have blurred affect and effect to the point where
how the heck are you on the screen?
Well, you're in a VR headset. That's how they work.
No, how are you in that screen?
By running it from a PC. So, anyway, stunning dialogue here over how we've taken affect to mean effect, EFFECT, and who cares? It's really pedantic.
Okay, sorry, man. Sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
mean
so
to-
gambler's fallacy. And here's the thing. We will think we are due, right? We're due for good luck. And that just isn't the case. Straw manning. We have a fellow who comes in here who might as well be named Septic Strawman. And he does nothing but back to future probability. You fixed it because why not? He does nothing but say, okay, so you're saying, and then he labels the other side in a way that's easy to knock down, obvious, and clearly not what the person's trying to argue. That's a way of engaging in bad faith. But also, I see it happen all the time for people who are radicalized. They use this to dismiss counterpoints because they have a ready-made response to those counterpoints, or to those things that they're ready to dismiss. So you can straw man someone not simply by exaggerating to the point that's obviously absurd, which is why Septics is so obscene, but also by misrepresenting their argument in a way that you're ready to argue against. And that is a trick that we pull on ourselves. We should be aware of.
But you don't know what his intentions are, Dr. Say.
Oh yeah, it's very easy to get at them. You say, hey, did you mean to say?
So what you're trying to say is you understand.
Well, are you trying to say, right? You in a good faith attempt. Yeah, you ask.
Are you trying to say?
Yeah.
Are you? Okay, I get it.
Yeah. And so you're in good faith trying to get at them. And finally, red herring, distracting with an irrelevant point, introducing an irrelevant topic to divert attention away from the original issue, often avoiding addressing the challenging question or point.
Because we all know the Earth is a disc.
Right. And we all know that as soon as you're asked about January 6th, your response should be, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the pets. Right? If you
protest.
if you can start a large enough fire, you can.
Spoken by someone who obviously hasn't tried the cat.
Okay. So
too far?
Red hair.
Too far.
Right. And
I
with
always
that,
go too far.
Don't we all? We have gone over our general ideas, and as you can see here, we have a series of good idea, bad idea people bring up, the logic underlying what they're saying, and the steel manning of that argument. Because all of us make poor arguments, so we try our best to find the logical errors and underpinnings in those arguments, and then reform their argument in the best version possible. Once someone's like, yes, that is my argument, that's what I want to say, and it's the best version you can make for them, then you have a right to disagree with them. Then you have a right to draw your own conclusions. Until then, what you're doing is tricking yourself into not listening to the best version you can imagine for them. And that is what we do here. All right. So I took the intro, and now other volunteers are going to take the conversations.
Okay. Anyone have a topic they want to bring up? Anything that's light or, interesting? Maybe not too spicy because of election season. But if you have anything that is a little bit, that's fine. We'll do it for this week.
I got something that might not be. No, it is. No, I can't.
Throw it at us and we'll throw it back if it's not good. It's better than silence, I guess.
Okay, I feel like the given what's happening, I feel like the left news stuff, YouTube's mainly, I would say. I feel like people don't recognize. People don't like to recognize that they also take things out of context as well, as much as other ones do. And so when people, and I feel that they do, and so when people take I feel like the left side takes news outlets verbatim just as much as like my friend did with the claims of FEMA. I think they do that as well, and I think that breeds hatred. So I guess using that as an example, I would say people taking things verbatim happens all over the place, and they use that as ammo, and it further divides people. I don't exactly know where I'm going with it.
Are you saying something like left-wing media outlets often push? Oh, Jesus Christ! 1 second.
Scarred secret.
Yeah. Left-wing media outlets are just as susceptible to, not telling the truth, or maybe using their own, let's say, thinking mistakes to push their own agendas.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm feeling this week. So, I don't know.
So I would say that the left wing and the right wing media apparatus are both fueled by profit.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to have critical thinking skills to be able to sift through all of the noise and really get to the core primary sources of what is being reported on and how it's being reporting on. So I would say a good media diet would be try to get as unbiased information as you possibly can from both sides of the aisle, so you can make your own conclusion as to
which is why we have today's sponsor, Ground News. And I'm sorry, it's a joke. It's a joke.
I get that all the time on the podcast I listen to. Jesus.
Do you actually have sponsors?
No, we don't want sponsors. We're here to do this as a public service.
Yeah, so it would be critical thinking is really the best way to basically arm yourself so that you can fight as much disinformation and get to the truth of the matter.
Well, they do say that music helps. Learning music helps with your critical thinking, and that's just what I went to school for. So there we go.
Mm-hmm. But I would agree with what Hollywood Court is saying, is that they definitely have confirmation bias, where they will there's a problem with price gouging lately, and it's like they don't want to talk about it that much because it's a lot of corporations that own the media companies also maybe own some food companies or some food stocks or things like that, and it's like, of course they're not going to bring up the cost of food being directly due to corporate greed. They would rather say it's like something completely unrelated, or just not bring it up.
There's also a general ignorance of the system, and when you do not know how things work, you do not know how to explain how things work. So, for example, even when I saw people blaming food gouging on the price increases that you see at the store, I saw them blaming Kroger when Kroger was not making extra money on food with the higher prices. It was PepsiCo, who owns the supply chain, who was extracting 1/3 of the price increases, right? These sorts of differences
over Pepsi.
This is not going to help. My point was that it's that is the distribution companies who have a monopoly on moving the stuff around that were making the money. And that is a whole different thing. It's not food that's being gouged, it's transportation. It's too nuanced. But when you don't have that nuance, it's easy to debunk your bad argument. So, to me, the only way forward is to help people understand the complexities of our system, because if you're going to participate in this system, you have to understand how it works.
Should lying in media be a finable offense?
Well, that's a good topic.
Not jail time. Not criminal. Like a bylaw. Like if you want to sit here and spread lies,
Should that be a finable offense?
So I think it would be hard to implement in at least in the media market that is the United States because of how strongly we believe in free speech, and the way media companies get away with it nowadays is they deem it under the guise of it's an opinion news, and then we have the news side where mostly reports the news with sometimes a political spin depending on the network that you watch. But the way they get away with blatantly lying is literally they just frame it as, oh, it's an opinion. So you can't, if you limit that or you find them, that would be limiting free speech, and that would open up a whole can of worms.
Rewrite the rules, though. Like we're
well,
talking about
I
news.
think that I mean, some of this would be better done without government oversight in a way that they police themselves in, like, hey, if there were some sort of tag or source, you can go like, hey, according to this study or this news journal or this group, this statement has been found factual according to them, or like say if you used like Wikipedia as a source or something like that, that might be the beneficial way to tag it without having the government have to step in. And I think news corporations would follow in that, where it's like, say NBC or something like that, if they had a news story, they at the end went like, oh, according to this news source, for their articles, then I think that like something like Fox or somebody else would step in if a lot of people saw that. But
right. But if you're going to put yourself out there as an information,
so Emat, there's a distinction in your assumption about what underlies what's real. You are asking, should it be illegal to lie?
No,
right?
No.
Well, if anyone can open up TikTok and call themselves a journalist, then anyone could be subject to some bureaucrat saying, I've decided that's a lie. And ultimately, if you don't comply, then there's a man with a stick to beat you about the head if you do not comply. Like that,
sure.
That's authoritarian. Yeah, and we don't need more bureaucrats sending more men with sticks after us.
What if there was a way to say like, this is an information outlet where you get information from, and to make it
well, again, now you're not allowed to disseminate information yourself because you're not an officially authorized information outlet.
No, you can. But if you let's just say you're an information outlet, like you have some kind of. Let's say you apply for So
Emat,
right?
This is the solution you're looking for. It's called legitimacy. It's a legitimation of the institution.
I understand that.
And we do that. We have what's called ethics in journalism, and journalistic ethics are very common. The problem is,
I know.
A lot of people don't know that the talking heads, right? 9 to 5. Journalism has ethics. 5 to 9, the talking heads don't.
I do understand that stuff, but what I also understand is that people in the internet, right? Echo chambers are massive. So if you go on the internet, you're not necessarily going on the internet to find out what's going on with this topic. You're going on the internet to find the topics that correlate and agree with you. That's what I see.
I like Big Strong made a really good point. The way I look at this is information is like food. People don't consume healthy food because unhealthy food makes them feel good. People seek out unhealthy information because it makes them feel good by validating their grievances.
True. Okay, Wolfware, what do you got? I cannot hear you. Your audio's borked. No, you have to leave and come back. I'm sorry.
That's very disappointing.
That sucks.
You could stay and listen, I guess, or you can come and back.
You can leave and come back, and you have.
Yeah, there's still room.
Sorry about that.
Cool.
I guess what I was trying to get at was that if there was a way to have a news outlet or a news channel that took all bias out of it,
Completely.
Okay, so Emat, like I was saying, your ideas about what reality are. Here's the other side. So,
it's not my
on
ideas.
one-
I'm just putting. Just to be clear, I'm just putting it on the table. I'm just
You're
putting it on the table.
okay. So
No,
there's
no. I
not-
think
not
I
that.
think
There's
it's a good idea to start thinking these through. But if it's one of
That's
those
right.
things where it's like, let us help you think it to the next step.
Yeah, I know.
Because
I
you're
want you
putting
to. I
out
just want
the
you.
front
yeah.
one, and then we'll lead
So-
you forward.
Yeah,
There's
I
an
just want you to make
underlying
sure.
assumption about reality, right? When you say unbiased, either, and this is the way I see it, okay? You can assume that reality is made up of physical things with backed up by men with sticks and violence that will occur to you if you don't do what's real, if you're not realistic, okay? So, for example, a worker group all saying we own Amazon now and we do the work for Amazon, so we are Amazon, and there is no more shareholders and there is no more Jeff Bezos. That's not realistic, right? Because men with sticks will come and beat them upside the head until it becomes the reality. Okay? So that is one understanding of reality. I have a different one. I think that reality is made up of our imaginations. Most of what we live in is imaginary. Most of what we do is based on what we can imagine ourselves doing. And so because of that, innovation, entrepreneurship, and imagination make up the worlds that we can live in. And so we have simply disempowered ourselves in believing in a different world. Instead, we accept the world where men beat us about the head for not doing what some bureaucrats told us to.
Okay.
So when you have that, then there isn't then what you'll see is what's called what's called bias or unrealistic or a lie is actually a lack of vision for imagining something different. And these ideas that you're going to punish people for thinking differently is based on whether or not you hit them with sticks or disagreeing with the institution. Because at no point do I think you're going to argue that we ought to only base our ideas off of peer-reviewed journal articles based in science. Because if that's the case, we shouldn't have news. We should just have scientific reports. That would be much less bias.
That's what I'm talking about, but publicized, like
So-
on video.
Okay, so here's my proposal that I think could help. Okay, there's been talk about going back to the Fairness Act, but I don't think that's the solution. I think what we have to do is right now under defamation law. Okay, if you're talking about public figures and whatnot, then you can't be held liable. There's like an exemption, like a safety net there. So I think if you are going to report things as fact in a public forum as a news provider, that exemption shouldn't apply to you, that there should be a right for someone to come in if you are creating defamation, causing defamation or misstating facts, to come in and make you liable for doing that. And it's one thing if you want to do an entertainment segment and you're saying, or this is my opinion, and you want to have commentary, that's fine. But if you're going to state something as fact, then you need to have a way to defend yourself. If someone comes in and say that my facts are supported by this, so if someone comes in and sues you for misleading people, for making wrong facts, for basically defamation, then you need to be ready to be able to prove that what you were saying is factually correct.
Okay, so I think I'm coming back. Dr. Chase, what you said at the end there was exactly what I was talking about. Now in Canada, it's not around anymore.
Well, hold on, Matt. You're not addressing what Wolf Bear said, and so we have to come back to that. But then I'll come back to you. What you're saying.
No, I heard what she said.
Oh,
I agree with her to a degree.
So,
but let me get there.
You're going to integrate what she says into what you're saying?
What would you like me to say?
I'd like you to hold. All right, Wolf. The difficulty of that is that anytime you can use the bureaucratic institutions to get people to be beaten about the head, which is ultimately what happens if you just don't pay your fines, right? Like, remember, every law is the threat of violence. Every rule and every regulation is the threat of violence. And as such, you have to ask yourself, is it really worth hurting people over this? Is it really worth the consequences of using violence to chill people's actions?
Right, but I'm not-
And
Are you
and it
responding
is a
to
chilling
mine?
effect. Yeah. You said, if I got it correct,
No, but I'm
we
not
ought.
saying a law
Mhm.
that is going to be enforced by the government, like a penal type law. I'm talking about laws under the defamation laws that exist where
Yeah.
you have a
Yeah,
civil.
I think that what
So
Wolf
that's
is
not a
talking about
threat.
is our current system we have now. Like the way
Within the
that
current system.
Tucker Carlson can go like, hey, everything I say is parody because I'm secretly entertainment.
Can.
So I am not
Yeah.
considered libel or defamation.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the same time, who is to say what is libel and what is defamation? Talking about Donald Trump being convicted of sexual assault, being found liable. That could be thought of as defamation when he's president, right?
Unless it's true.
And as long as there's a bureaucratic institution that someone wielding power can use against people telling the truth, they're going to use it much more often to wield it against people telling the truth than against people who are lying, because they'll only ever wield it against the people who are lying against them, not the people that are lying for them. But they will also use it against people telling the truth in a way that hurts them.
But what's stopping them from doing it now?
Because because right now there's an out for defamation if you're dealing with a public figure or public issues. So if it's something you basically, by becoming a public figure, are consenting to having whatever people want to say about you said, and you don't have a recourse under law.
Not correct in English or
Under-
Australian law.
Yeah, and
Under
US
English,
law.
under English law, even public figures.
Yeah,
if I
'cause you
said
have
something,
moral rights.
if I said something against a politician, I may not like a politician. I say something against them. They're well within their rights to sue me. It is only within the parliament itself that you can bring things up and claim things that a politician did, and you're exempt from being sued. As soon as you're outside of parliament and say it, you can be sued.
Yeah.
And just remember, people who bring defamation suits against people, you have to have a great deal of money to do it. Minimum 100,000. Most defamation costs run into $500,000. So you have to be quite rich to be able to bring defamation proceedings against a person.
And thus, Drop Bear, it becomes a law that's enforced and for the wealthy and the elite.
Yes.
And
That's a good point.
and this is what we always see with laws that we pass. The more we have, the more we're harming people, unless we can show that it's directly saving lives, right? Having a law against drunk driving saves lives. Having a law saying you have to buckle your seatbelt saves lives. Having a law saying that you can't give out poison milk saves lives. Having a law that says that you can't fix your own house, like because that you have to deal with these accounting books that are so complex, whose complexity goes up to match how complex it needs to be to make sure a robot can't do it, right? This is payola to the professional classes that are part of the power instruments in society.
Or you
This is
can't
not-
fix your own iPhone, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yes.
Now, a law that says you have to allow people to fix their own stuff. Well, that's beneficial. These are the trade-offs, right? Or is it giving people more freedom and protecting them from the tyranny of authority that comes from outside of people with sticks? Or is it causing more men with sticks to hit people in heads?
Yeah, sorry, I do have a kind of solution for what Emat's saying, is that it could be the way that dolphin safe tuna cans have the label that say, oh, they're dolphin safe. That's because a group of people decided to be like, okay, we're going to investigate these organizations, and then everyone that follows our certain criteria of meeting dolphin safe nets or whatever gets this logo. And that's a way to do it without the government, is to have a stamp of approval of trusted individuals who can do the research.
Yes, that's exactly what I was gonna say before, but I was right for you to address her first, for me to hold, because she did have something to say, and I didn't. Yeah, so.
But you're right. Legitimating bodies can be very powerful.
Right. So what I was gonna say was, in Canada, it's not there anymore, but in Canada there was a channel that you could go to. It's a very boring channel. It was the weather and then recent events that happened in Parliament, and it was there for 20 some odd years, and all it was essentially cliff notes of what happened in Parliament and the weather, and that was it. Like, it would just show a note and then another note and then another note, and then it would do that all day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and nobody fucking, like, it was the most boring thing. But something like that just, I don't know.
We currently have C-SPAN. That is what our version of that is.
But I would argue there is a difference between eating your veggies and just chewing on wood bark.
That's true. Cardboard.
Yeah. I guess the sensationalization of news now.
I'm jumping into much more cover. I'm going to mute myself and walk away.
Okay. Sounds good.
Anyways, I'm on the big screen. That's pretty sick.
Okay. I've distracted you. I'm sorry. But yes. I think that's a good point, of that there needs to be some sort of almost a governing body to be like, okay, but not a governing body. Nothing in the laws, but just like a group of individuals who could go like, okay, this media is relatively, truth trusted, which could be that could also backfire, because now that I think about it, because then it's like one side could be like, oh, well, this is all Trump's good news media, so we're gonna put the Trump stamp of not fake news on it, and that could really backfire if people actually started using that. So
everyone has their own perception of what bias is. That's the problem. When you're saying an unbiased news report, what's left-wing to you might be considered right-wing to me. Everyone's on a sliding scale. Politically, as the right wing has moved more to the right, the left has moved more to the right to pick up those voters that are starting to feel alienated.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
So
yes,
we're already on... Yes, another name for it. Thank you. There is a sliding scale of truth. Now, if we aligned everyone in the room probably on their beliefs, we would have a sliding scale left to right of where everyone sat. Personally, I'd be a little bit more right of Genghis Khan, but that's everyone's sliding scale. So when you say unbiased, what is unbiased to you may not be considered unbiased to me, or to Wolf Bear, or to Giston, or to Murkove, or Townie, or anyone else in the room. So using the word unbiased...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, the only way you would have a news that's unbiased is to have two extremes on the news, one giving their opinion of event, the other giving their opinion. And then you could make your decision which side of the argument.
Even them, they're biased. It is. What I'm saying is that, like, here's the number 10, right? Or let's say someone said, like, hey, like, this is very, and I don't know if this is too simple, but I'm gonna use a simple
works. Simple always works.
Right. So someone says there's some rocks outside, and we got to figure out how many there are. And so someone goes out and says, okay, there's 10 rocks. So they come back. There's a picture. There's a diagram pointing to all the rocks, and they say, and they're all numbered, and it says and it says 10 rocks. And then it's like, here's the information.
There it is. And then everyone here can see that there's 10 rocks, and then they can take that information as they see
No,
fit.
that's data. There's a difference between data and information.
I know that. That's what I mean, though.
What you've done is you've identified data. Information is putting it in context.
But also,
What's that about
there is.
So people.
I was gonna
Data
say
is information.
Yeah, go for it. I was gonna say there's bias too. What is a rock? Some people would change of like,
Yep.
oh, this tiny pebble is technically almost a rock. What is?
On
Yeah, and then it would be
Wait,
like, this is completely
now we're getting
wrong.
into the whole like, is this a stick or a twig?
Well, wait.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
How
no,
many
but I'm
planets are
saying
there?
any
In model,
question
there's
could have
9.
that. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Yes, of course.
I just want to say that I think we can all agree that unbiased is a misnomer, right? We're just using that colloquially to be like less biased, right? Because unbiased coming from a human subject is impossible, right?
That's
Because
true.
we aren't seeing
my
real reality. We're
God.
seeing. Well, no, this is important.
No, I mean you're right, but like,
Well, you cannot.
there's
you cannot
you're right.
sidestep this. You have to.
Confront this full on. You have to, because you are talking about enacting a law. When you're talking about something so severe, like he mentioned with violence, you have to take this into consideration.
No, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Townie here. I think we're probably at the opposite ends of the political spectrum, I would guess.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right in what the definition means, and what you would consider one thing, I would consider another. Where does the truth sit on that spectrum? And even if you have something peer review, and this has failed in scientific literature a lot, that the peer review people doing the peer review have their own biases that they apportion to the articles. I'm thinking particularly in the social sciences. There's a number of examples of that where it's been moved to one end of the spectrum by the people reviewing it, because the other people rejected it. So you go and find someone that is more likely to approve that sort of thing. And again, it forms a thought bubble.
But also,
peer review works, JS?
Am I the only smart person here?
I don't think that's.
no, you're gone now. Okay. What I was going to say is, I'll leave you with that caveat because I think Sayas had to step away, but because he works with peer-reviewed journals, so I think he'd be more likely to fight for them. But what I was going to say,
comes back, maybe we'll argue that. But
yes.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. What I was going to say is that also, Emat, you're saying that the news should only report fact-based thinking, but you got to also think about.
Again, I just want to make it very clear that it was just.
Oh no,
a
it's an idea
suggestion.
experiment. Yeah. No, I agree. Okay, then, I mean, yes, the idea experiment of only having fact-based news, it kind of breaks apart in the fact that so many stories are also based on empathy and humanizing other people, and that kind of story cannot be said through facts. The emotion, the human push of a story. You can't really report the suffering of people through numbers, because to each person, suffering is different.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, like, that would be covering any war story, covering any domestic violence abuse or anything like that would be really hard to do, because to some person, like, is boxing the same as domestic abuse? It's like, no, physically they might be because they're both punching, but the emotion of the matter is completely different, and the story of the matter is completely different. So
Right. I guess the reason I bring this up is because when my buddy was saying, can you believe it, that FEMA spent $1.4 billion on the migrant crisis, and you're gonna sit here and tell me that there's no immigration problem when they took money from the people that were in Florida and put it and help the migrants coming into the country illegally instead. And I'm like, dude, come on now.
What
like
is
that
biases?
sounds insane. You're not going to look a little bit deeper into that and tell me, or you're just going to take that at face value and tell me that that's just the way it is. Like
Yeah.
it's
That would be
obviously
confirmation bias. That would be
well, that's what I
confirmation
mean,
bias.
right? Like
Yeah.
he sees this and then it was just like that's how it is. That's it. That's it. FEMA's taking money out of the relief fund and funding the migrants. And then you do a little bit of research and you find out, well, that's not really the case. You know, that's like, these are big numbers and this is the thing, but it's not really what happened, right? So, but he took it at face value.
Yeah. I do think that is.
I bet you a lot of people did, right?
Yeah. I will say.
So,
And this is part of the problem too, I think, is that people that take that at face value, not everybody, but some people will take that and engage in acts of violence or threats of violence based off of that misinformation.
right, but these are
Like
coming
there was a man
from
arrested
credible
in
news
North
courses.
Carolina, I think, basically for threatening FEMA workers. And the problem is that the original person who starts that misinformation, they get off scot-free because they can hide behind their keyboards. But then it has real-world effects. And I think that's called stochastic terrorism if it's done intentionally, where you literally say, like, this group of people here is evil or they're, doing things, whatever. And then people in the real world that are following them take that into their own hands.
But this isn't people hiding behind the keyboards. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that I think a lot of what we're doing here is trying to combat that in the fact that I think a couple weeks ago we brought up a news article that had some biased information where it was just like completely written in a way that was just writing around what was happening but not saying. It's like when you cite a source, but in the way you say, well, people are saying. And it's like, yeah, the people are just the people that were around you. And it's like, that's not a real source. But people don't necessarily understand that. So I think it's making people more literate to being able to read articles and tell when people are trying to trick you is beneficial. And I think sadly, a lot of the like corporations and stuff like that, they don't want you to know that because they use those same tricks. The same tricks that are used to make you vote one way or another or to like support one politician over another are the same tricks that get you to buy Pepsi over Coca-Cola. They're the same tricks, I think. But that's
crazy because Coke's the best.
Just to be clear,
you, Pepsi.
those posts, the post that he got them from was the FEMA workers skipping the homes was from the Washington Times, and the other one with the FEMA stuff was from the New York Post. So I don't know what those are to you guys. But
I don't know much about them other than they tend to be right-leaning. That's all I know.
Yeah, and not only that, but any news website often has editorials where they can just literally do what I just said of, hey, I heard somebody say this, or it is said that somebody says this, or using a third party to confirm something where it's like you can't really confirm a third party.
Can I inject something?
Crazy.
Yes, you and then Justine. I butchered that
I
name.
just wanted to, like, what Matt is talking about. I think is like, I think what's more interesting, the question, or to like ponder and analyze is why is disinformation something that people use? Why is it popular? Why does it happen? Who does it serve? Who benefits from it? Like, I think that's more important than like trying to find a law to like outlaw it. Because if we find out what the foundation of its existence is, or why it has popularity, then we know where to like take out the problem, right?
Like currently, the topic Emat brought up of FEMA spending a bunch of money on immigrants. The reason that they're doing that is to not only stoke hatred for the government, but to also stoke hatred for immigrants. It's a dual process of trying to do two separate things at the same time to push their own agenda. Okay.
I think the reason they do it is it's for the soundbite. That 5-second soundbite gets you the clip on the news at the evening. If you say something memorable, it's on the news. No one wants to listen to a 30-minute diatribe of someone explaining the ins and outs of FEMA. But if someone says FEMA bad, they stole money from my friend, bingo, there's your soundbite.
Pathos, yeah.
And it's the same with advertising. Coke adds life. Bingo, it's one of those nice little, very quick to say slogans. You want to get your slogan on the evening news. And let's face it, the world is a complicated place. There is nothing that's easy to understand out there about the news. You look at the war spots, Israel, Hamas, that is so complicated over decades or generations. Same in Russia. It's a complicated thing. People's minds, when they come home from work, don't want to have to deal with more complicated problems. They want the talking head on the news to distill it down into this man good, this man bad. And sadly, we all fall into that trap.
Okay, Justine, do you have anything? I think you were saying something earlier.
It's Justin. So
Sorry.
That's okay. It's a common thing.
Mhm.
No, so what I'm listening to here, and the problem is on the other side of everything that we're talking about, is that we're asking people to be critical thinkers, and so how to get people to be more, think differently about the content and the information, because we can't control the information. We can't even legally try to push, things, because we've discussed biases and so how do we get people to be critical thinkers? And then if we're going to do that, what Drop Bear was saying, like, who has time, right? And so when you look at the economics of our country and you look at the average people and how much time they actually have, you turn on the news and it's a vicious cycle, right? Because now we're leaning onto the news where we might have sound bites and clips and things like that, and we can only digest it, and pretty soon we're just leaning on the bold print. I mean, remember the limit when everything was 120 characters? I mean, that's where it started. We really narrowly had to, people's thinking had to narrowly be 120 characters long, and decisions were made off of that. Historically, this has been a problem. How do you change it legally? How do you undo bias? But I think the trend needs to be how to get people how to inspire critical thinking.
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Well, wait. I want to respond real quick. That's what we're doing here. You go to teachprogress.org, and you can look at what we do in the room. Also on Twitch, you can see what we did at the beginning. We went over various mistakes in thinking. At the core of it, the goal is, and I agree with you, we have to have a consciousness raising. Once people are more capable of thinking critically, then they're more capable of living in this world. But to start with, we have to have clear thinking, and then we can help people progress into more critical thinking. I have a 3-part idea that starts with critical thinking, democratizing the knowledge that we have in universities about how to think critically so that more people have access to it. Then giving people access to the social scientific knowledge that we can generate and how to understand it, which is what I think Emat was getting at earlier. Like, we need good knowledge out there. And then teaching people how to contribute themselves. Why should you have to have a PhD in psychology in order to give information about psychology or sociology or anthropology or economics, why can't you, in your own subject position in your own community, say, hey, this is information we need. I want to share it with everybody and let everyone else know that thing. So that, to me, is the social structures that we need to build underneath what we have today, because every change in social structure starts with that social structure falling apart, yes, and a different social structure rising up underneath it. The church replaced Rome, and the aristocracy replaced the church in total, and the traders replaced the aristocracy. They didn't do it by asking permission. They did it by building their own systems of knowledge and valuing and in communities, and being ready for when that system fell apart. And I think if you don't see that this system's fallen apart, you're not looking too close. So I want us to be ready for an enlightened world instead of a new dark ages.
Yeah.
I think when it came,
let's
real quick.
Yeah, of course.
So I think Drop Bear had a question earlier about how the peer review process works, and now that you're back, Dr. Sayas, I just want to make sure your question, Drop, was: do you think, or your claim, I'm sorry, you think that that peer review in science has a significant problem of scientists shopping for reviewers?
Not quite. What I actually said was there are examples of people taking just because a paper is peer reviewed does not mean it's infallible. It means certain people have checked it out. Now those people can come with their own cognitive biases on that paper, especially in the social sciences, that will approve the paper, especially for publication. Because right now at the moment it's publish or be perish. That's the sad point. Most universities have a minimum of, you must publish 3 peer-reviewed papers in a journal per year. Some, to get advancement, you need to do 5. So people shop around, they find journals that they know that they can get published in. They will get the papers peer-reviewed. It's an issue. So just because something is peer-reviewed does not put it beyond the realm of questionability.
People make mistakes, but I guess what I'm wondering is, can you give an example? You mentioned social sciences. Can you give an example of like peer-reviewed studies that you think were
I would have to look it up, but
they shopped around to find something?
I would have to look it up. There was a famous one done recently where they submitted something to a journal of feminist studies, I believe, and it got published, and it was a joke article.
So I'm happy to address. I'm happy to address the dog park. So let's. Yeah, I'll address dog park. So to start, absolutely, Drop Bear. People make mistakes all the time. Entire areas might not hold up over time. The interpretation of those data can change. This occurs in physics, in chemistry, biology, and certainly social sciences. So the system also relies on this one idea. You have dedicated your life to being a professor of this thing. It has taken you all the way up until usually your 30s at least to be able to finally write papers that get published and lead those things through. Okay? So when that happens, you say, oh, okay, this person put in this much work to focus on this one little area, and they're worthless anywhere else on Earth. It's the only value they have to add, because their heads are so damn pointy, is to add knowledge here. So are they going to fake their data? Well, publish or perish, there is a demand to get you to publish things, so maybe they'll make things up. But also, they're gonna get caught, because you can replicate what people did, and you can find out that what they found just doesn't hold. So they won't have a very good reputation if they have a bunch of papers that don't replicate. So it's less likely, but it's possible. And then you say, well, what do we do about that? And the answer is, we trust people. We trust people with the data that they give you. And we trust people to use that data as best as they can. And when it gets replicated, to say, oh, actually, that didn't hold. And every once in a while, when people have fake data, you have to withdraw those articles. But like you said, the benefit of publishing bad data is so small. You have to do it for all of your papers and be a total joke, right? And if happens,
there was one that came up recently. I believe it was in biology. I'm trying to look up the person's name. I can't find it. But if you just look up academic misconduct on Wikipedia, it's like probably 20 pages of people's names.
Yeah,
that have been.
So in a recent replication of 20,000 biology studies, 3% of them came up with trouble, like mistakes in the paper themselves, and about half of those, 1.5%, were people who had bad data. Now, who created the bad data? Some people are saying, well, it was like a grad student who made up the data because they didn't want to do the work, and so on and so forth. Okay, but certainly these things do happen, and if you have hundreds of thousands of papers a year, and 1% of them are going to be bad data, which is a pretty good hit rate if you compare it to any newspaper, right? That means you're definitely going to have thousands of papers that are a mistake, which is why you shouldn't run with any one paper.
Two things I'd like to add to that. You are correct. It's probably better than a newspaper. So I agree with you on that. However, it's not an infallible source.
Oh, yeah. I mean, literally, we're talking about how it's not an infallible source, right? But we are also talking about how the quality of the information gets better and better. This is why I was pushing against EMAT when he said objective, because I know full well objectification occurs, but maybe our methods for objectification are in error. Maybe we're making a mistake in our thinking more fundamentally. Einstein certainly showed that generations of physicists were getting things wrong, and they just didn't know how to deal with the anomalies in their theories. So it's completely normal for science to be tentative, limited, have only a partial grasp of the world, because of course we do. We know that there's limitations. There has to be. We're not gods.
One of the big issues with research data at the moment is the amount of storage it takes to keep your original data files. Once your article's published, people generally keep the data for 3 to 4 years, and then there's no other requirement to keep it. So that data is then dumped because of the storage costs. So when someone 10 years from now goes back and says, let us look at this study of African bees, the data is no longer there. It's been removed because of the size of the data, the gigabytes, the terabytes that it takes up, or petabytes, as more and more data becomes, especially with medical and especially with all the AI data being generated. We're into the petabyte scale at the moment, and it's a massive cost to for a university to keep that. Even if they put it into offline storage, the cost to recover that is in the millions of dollars.
Yeah. Luckily, most replication isn't just doing your homework for you again, but rather a actual redoing of the experiment or what have you, the study, in order to recreate the data, often even with extensions where you do your best to replicate the situation where it was done.
I gotta take off, guys. It's really good talking.
Oh yeah, it was a great conversation. Thank you for bringing up that point.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Dog Park, by the way, the reason that it was a hoax, why it was a problem, is they lied about collecting their data. I've read the papers. They claim to be doing a qualitative study, not a quantitative study. They're just like, oh, I noticed something, and this is my interpretation. That's not meant for prime time, man. That's meant to inspire other people to go do the quantitative work to make it more scientific and more corroborated. So they were claiming to do a qualitative study, and their qualitative study was, I went and saw people in Portland, and the ones that let their dogs hump each other also acted more misogynistically. That's what they said. And
Yeah.
maybe they do. I don't know. That's not a crazy claim that someone that lets their dog go off and sexually assault is somebody also who's more likely to accept sexual assault. That's a weird claim. And if you make it, it's worth investigating that maybe that there's this whole lifestyle around being someone that supports sexual assault. But it's not insanity like the dog park video on YouTube made it out to be. What is insanity is that this dude faked his data, lied about it, and got it published and said, haha, fooled you. We all know you can fake your data. It's the fact that you will lose your lifetimes of work, your dedication to this profession, if you fake it, that keeps you from faking your data. And so, and even then, some people do because they want to get published and they're lazy. But, cheating never stops at just cheating the once. And they get caught and they lose their careers. And now they find themselves in their mid-40s with no job, and all they know how to do is write sociology papers. Well,
Yeah, it's
good
like
on them. They deserve it.
yeah, it's like stealing. It's like it's not the fact that you could steal, it's that there were consequences for what you did for stealing. The system works. There was consequences for them making the data up eventually. It's not that they were able to make up the data in the first place that is the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Additionally, in the video, the guy publishes in one of the worst journals out there, like Gender and Place. And like he said, it was the top feminist geography journal. And since I study place and feminism and intersectionality, and I've never heard of this thing, I don't know what he's talking about. But he then said, and sociology, an entire subfield with hundreds of thousands of people doing work. And he's trying to dismiss that on the back of one very bad journal he faked his data for. It was a hit piece. It wasn't meant as an honest representation of the problems. There are problems, and they should be addressed.
Are you
It
familiar
would
with
be
the,
like trying
with the
to say,
grievance studies
Oh,
hoax?
Yeah, that's why I said Dog Park is the grievance studies hoax. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
The YouTube video, Dog Park, is what I'm talking about. And
I haven't
that
seen.
is where
I haven't seen the video. I've read the paper. I haven't seen the video.
I've read. They have like 8 papers. I've read all of them, and I've read they're talking about it. And I reviewed a paper by the guy at Science where he was trying to justify his crap. I thought he was trying to hoax me because I looked at it and the claims he was making were exactly the opposite of the papers that he was citing. So I don't know if he was trying to break into the highest levels by going to Science, but he definitely, but this time he was being like anti-woke. So he was trying to go the other way with it.
The one I liked was called Transgressing the Boundaries Towards a Transformative Hermeneutics of Quantum Gravity, where basically they claimed gravity was a social phenomenon and it wasn't anything physical at all.
Well, do you know who would
And that
agree
got
with
published.
that argument? No, do you know who would agree with that argument? Einstein, who said gravity isn't a real thing. It's just an apparent creation of the Earth moving up at you and time-space bending back down so that you don't notice. So the fact that you don't understand hermeneutics or quantum physics, and that both can be used and have been used throughout time in order to create since the beginning of physics with Aristotle, used as an inspiration for theory in the social sciences. I mean, that's on you, buddy.
I think that's a bit of a stretch to say I don't understand quantum mechanics.
Oh, okay. So then you what?
Hermeneutics I may not understand.
Hermeneutics?
Yes. That's not my particular field of
That's right.
interest or study, but quantum mechanics certainly is.
Okay, great. And so you
and
agree.
yes, Einstein did say that gravity was a side effect of the space-time distortion around
There
a
you go.
large body. However, recently, about 2 years ago, there was I believe she is Swiss. She's living in England, and she's published a new theory on mass and gravity. I'm trying to remember her name. I can't at the moment, but she came out with a new theory of gravity, which does actually looks like it does reconcile a lot of the issues with Einstein's particular view.
And that might be the case, right? But and that's great, fantastic. Hopefully we can have a more fundamental breakthrough. I really would love to hear about the paper. But if what you're talking about is how gravity was once taken to be a absolute reality, a force that exists, and then because we understood Einstein, we now see it as something that is a outcome of distortions in time space. Now we could also ask, should we take for granted other social phenomena? Well, let's say the economy. Is the economy a real thing, or is it just a compilation of people moving back and forth with different valuing systems, and we just call it the economy for simplicity's sake, and we should look at it more deeply? And how do we do that?
Gravity is not a social construct. It's a real effect. The question is what's causing it. So Claudia de Rham is the woman that's come up with the new theory that says there are gravitons. Einstein didn't believe in gravitons. That's where the two theories separate. Einstein did the equations and said it's an outcome of distortion of space-time, and his equations do work. Claudia de Rham's equations also work. Now, that you can have two people who are right, we won't know which way it is until someone proves or disproves whether there are such things as gravitons, at which point we'll know who was right. That's what we're relying on at the moment. There is no gravity is a social construct.
We'll not know, because we won't know what the next theory is going to be that does an even better job, right? Or do you think humanity has gotten to the pinnacle of its capacity to develop an understanding of the world?
No, I did not say that.
Okay. Then what we call
You've
gravity...
just engaged in something in exactly what we were talking about earlier.
A straw man.
A lot of the
No.
newsreaders say, yes, people have said, or it has been said. You've just tried to put words into my mouth, which is not correct.
What I'm asking is, do you recognize that what we call gravity is a social phenomenon?
No. It's an effect. It's an
Yeah.
effect. If I drop something now, it's not a social phenomenon where people can debate or discuss it.
And
It's going
is
to
there
fall.
a
It's going to
social
fall at
aspect?
9.8.
Is there a social aspect to it? Did the meaning that people take away from the world change when we went from the Aristotelian idea that an apple falls because it has a tendency to fall inside of it, to the general Newtonian idea that there is a gravitational force that makes all things fall? Did that change the way people socially understand the nature of gravity?
Did it change the way people behaved? No, it did not.
No.
People still play soccer. People still build buildings. People still run. So
And
even if they do
built-
discover gravitons, it's not going to change the way people behave.
They built buildings differently, and they built rockets differently, and and when we found the time-space distortion that comes from movement, we also started building things differently, and we built our GPS coordinates differently because we had that information. People understand our science socially. Therefore, the meaning of it to people is itself socially embedded. Yes,
Okay,
it's a real
you
phenomenon. Yeah,
said
there's
three
something real
things-
underlying it
You
that
said
we cannot.
three things that are incorrect there. We did not suddenly. There is no way that Einstein's equations have been used in the building industry. We have not built any.
We don't have
buildings differently.
GPS without it. Yes, we don't have GPS without it.
Hang on. You said building. Now there's a difference.
I said
You
that Newton
buildings.
was used in buildings.
You said we
They're
build
rockets, actually.
rockets.
Mhm.
None of our rockets approach anywhere near relative
Yeah, I said
velocity.
Newton versus
The only
Aristotle.
thing, we're still building buildings using the same old equations we've always used.
What
They're
about in
still
Japan,
building
where you
them.
have
Moving from
the
buildings to
the earthquake-proof
buildings in general.
buildings in Japan?
That's got nothing
Yeah.
to do with Einstein's or
Drop.
quantum mechanics
Drop.
or gravity.
I think
Rob, are you
yeah,
not
if it
aware
would.
that
Clocks are different.
are you not aware that GPS systems are built? GPS systems are built
I
to
hadn't-
take into
I hadn't-
account the effect of time dilation.
I hadn't gotten to GPS. That was the one thing I did agree with.
Okay, you were
And that's
talking
the
about how
only
we build
thing-
things.
That's the only time we've used Einstein's equations is to account for the difference in time, and it's a few femtoseconds between the satellites in orbit and the time base on Earth.
Would you agree we
But
use
we do
Newton's
not
physics
change-
to do
we do
things
not-
like build rockets and buildings and do lots of stuff with Newton's equations, right?
We still use Newton's equations, yes. We don't
Yep.
use Einstein's
But
equations.
not Aristotle's,
you said
right?
because
But not Aristotle's.
he didn't really have many equations.
Okay,
Oh, he
also
didn't.
drop. It's not a few femtoseconds. The difference is actually 38.6 microseconds per day relative to the clocks on the ground. And this is important because
Shut
if
up.
we don't take into account this time dilation, the GPS coordinates are going to be way off.
Yes,
Yeah.
but that doesn't affect building a house.
But on the other hand,
We have not, even though we've
Newton's-
discovered there is
Newton's
space-time
understanding-
distortion, it hasn't changed the way we build a house. I have not seen one
But-
bricklayer come. Hang on,
drop that
This
isn't
brick
my
is- this
claim.
brick is
My
1
claim
kilogram.
is that as
Drop
we
it. Suddenly
change
have
our
to take into
listen
account-
carefully, dude. As we change the way we understand physics, we change our understanding of the world and how we deal with it. So, as we went from Aristotle to Newton, we went to a new way of dealing with the world around us and understanding it and interacting with it. It was a basic shift in the way we understand the world and who we are. This is what
people
happens.
walk differently, jump differently, totally.
What?
Please do explain. Do explain. How
It
did they
does
walk
not
and jump
change
differently?
Us
How
socially,
did
I
they
was
walk
being
and jump differently?
sarcastic.
How did they walk and jump
I was
differently?
being
Oh, they
sarcastic.
didn't.
If you
How did
can't-
they build? How
if
did
you
they build
can't tell
rockets differently?
sarcasm,
Did they build
I feel
rockets
sorry
differently
for you.
between Aristotle and Newton? Did they build explosives differently between them? Did they have a different capacity? Did they do things
I'll
differently
let you
as
in on a
Newton came to
secret.
being?
They didn't have rockets apart from the Chinese back in Aristotle's time.
What a great secret!
Wow,
They
I
had
didn't
they
know
had
that.
explosives. They had what are they called? Cannons before you had Newton. So, did Newton's equations change the way we build things? Yes, obviously. You're trying to avoid the point because you don't want to know that the point of the paper that you don't like is the social and symbolic meaning and use of the ideas, not the idea that gravity itself is physically caused by socially collective agreement, but rather that the social collective agreement about what gravity is makes a difference in how people do things.
No,
yeah.
it doesn't make a difference to how anyone drives a
Yeah,
car.
I mean, we just put out. Look, we just showed that Newton's physics changed how we do war, and Einstein's physics changed how we do GPS. So yeah, at very least, it did that. But you know what? It also changed the way people think about the nature of the world itself. Is it a system with consistent processes, or is it something with inbuilt traits, like Aristotle said? It changed how people assume the world works, and therefore how we understand our social world as well. Andy, I'm sorry, I keep stopping. Oh, Andy's muted.
Oh, Andy, you'll have to
The one time.
come back, I guess.
Do you hear him? I can't hear Andy at all.
I can't hear you.
Yeah.
You
have to just leave it
Oh,
like that.
the most angry Andy's ever been
Yeah.
is nobody can hear me.
I
Okay.
hear
Just
him.
have to leave and come back.
Okay, sorry.
All right.
Okay. Did you have something to say?
Justin?
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to say I'm like dying to stay here, but I have to get up early in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys have these groups on a regular
Yeah,
basis?
so if you go to teachprogress.org, we have our information, our
Can you hear me
live
now?
streams. Yes, and you can join our Discord. We are on starting around 9:30, 10 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays till about midnight, 1 o'clock. And we've been doing it for a while. And
And how about
it's a
in here?
collectivist where you volunteer. Andy's one of our volunteers and a mod on the Discord.
How about in here?
And
Like in a-
Einstein's
in
nuclear
here, in here.
equations
During those times.
are actually used in building.
Thank you. Have a good night,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Take care. Good having you.
Appreciated everything in here tonight.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, tell us, Andy.
Yeah, they're used in reactor design. Engineers use the equation to calculate the potential energy output of nuclear reactors, which is crucial in designing efficient and safe nuclear reactors. The fuel calculations help determine the amount of fissionable material needed for sustained reaction and estimating the energy output over time. Understanding the energy output helps us develop safety measures and containment systems for nuclear facilities. So you're wrong.
Yeah.
When I built my house, I didn't do any of those
Are you building
equations.
a nuclear reactor?
Are you?
Your argument was
Oh my
it's not
God.
used in building. I
Are
was sitting
you?
here listening. Your
I'm
argument was they are not. Einstein's equations are not used in buildings. Well, they are. They're used in building a nuclear reactor, which the last time I checked was a
Nuclear?
building.
Yeah. Saints
Are you
didn't
making?
say
I'm
houses.
sorry. I'm sorry. You picked up on my inability to say nuclear when I'm talking
Nuclear,
to
right.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
you
my
knew
God,
exactly
you-
what I meant.
Is
Don't
this an
be- don't be
Australian
smart
making
with me,
fun of
pal,
a
it won't
Scotsman
work.
for his accent? This is.
You're both wrong.
Well, he's
Yeah.
English. He's actually English, so he can't really help it.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
So the last time I checked, a nuclear reactor was a building. Therefore, your original premise is incorrect. Thank you. Drops mic, walks off stage.
I love the
But
visual
seriously,
gag.
Drop.
Good job.
Look, if you took away and if they approved the idea that what is physically real is caused by our social consent, then they got it wrong. If, on the other hand, they said that what we see and experience as physically real is tinged by and giving meaning to our social consent and collective understanding, then that's exactly how it works, which, by the way, is what hermeneutics gets us at. To understand something as a fact, we think about the way in which that thing might be factual in other cases and come back and forth between that thing and its other cases. That's hermeneutics of facticity, and it is the nature of being in the world. So that is what's going on. You just misunderstood a technical area that you don't understand. And sure, of course you did. That's no big deal.
It's also used in Nernst Einstein's equation plays a significant role in predicting concrete durability, particularly in
Really?
relation to chloride ion diffusion and reinforcement corrosion.
Oh, anytime
It's
you're
also
going to
used
have
in nuclear submarines and nuclear vessels.
concrete, though, I didn't think about that. Anytime you're going to have something that's decaying, right? Being able to understand that better is going to help. Wow, that's a really good point. Anyway,
makes sense.
How we understand things changes how we understand things. That's not crazy. And if we understand something that's physically real, like gravity, in a better way, because we missed part of it, of course it's going to change how we understand the world, which is what the title, I didn't read the paper, the title of the paper you're talking about means. But I get the sense that when people hear words that belong to different fields put together, they just assume that people are doing it wrong. When I've worked with lots of people who take physics as inspiration for their understanding of social systems, it works. It's not crazy. What is crazy is to say this is quantum physics. No, that's not.
And just as an errata, I can't say that word, long-term durability as well. To design structures lasting over 100 years, the diffusion coefficients of chlorides and oxygens should not exceed 10 to the minus 9 centimeters. And then there's numbers that I don't know.
Right.
And it's determined using the Nernst-Einstein equation, which is a combination of Einstein's equation and Nernst's equation.
Real quick on the quantum gravity thing that you're talking about, Drop Bear, you're talking about the Sokolov hoax. And I read his book on page 64, footnote 7. He points out that his real problem is that there aren't exact equations to predict the social sciences. And that's a problem for the social sciences more generally, but he will not talk about that here. In fact, he's just saying he doesn't like social science. That is all he is saying, and he Motte and Bailey's it by saying, well, look at how crazy they are, when in fact he submitted to a journal that wasn't even peer-reviewed, which, by the way, you can get bad things into peer-reviewed journals, but he submitted it to a journal that literally is there to let people just come up with wild ideas so other people can think about them. And we all know that's what you're doing. And he did it, and he's like, see how wild of an idea I came up with? And like, yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
And
Wow,
you also mentioned gravitons.
That is the most
They're hypothetical.
Yep.
Sorry, darling.
psychopathic thing ever to be like, no, all social sciences should be an equation. What the heck? That, like, even my basic understanding goes like, that's not how that should be. That should not be like that at all.
Yeah, well, to a physicist, it should, right?
Mhm. Yes.
And
people are numbers, and I'm sure that guy has a healthy life in his family relationships, the way he thinks like that. Oh, that's mean. That was, I was doing a personal attack.
Sokolov. Yes, that was a personal attack on Sokolov.
I apologize.
But
to that guy I don't know about.
yeah, so I read Sokolov's book. I follow all of these things because I do this for a living. And I got an award for it and most well cited for a paper showing that 1 out of 3 papers in my field had a fundamental error in it. Like, this is what I'm saying. People make mistakes. That is the point of science. Previous scientists made mistakes. Go find some of those errors. It makes us all better. That's not a reason to dislike it. It's a reason to say, hey, that's like the best we can do, man. And we can't really get at all the truth because there's always going to be more to know. But at least we got this much.
And research is something I'm good at. So much so that I might be ended up working for the Labour government.
Really?
Really?
Awesome, Andy.
Yeah, I was talking to Westminster the day, a lady in my MP's office about issues that I was having, and she was going on, and I was telling her all the stuff and throwing out figures and data, and she says, "Oh, you seem to know a lot about this stuff." I says, "Yeah, that's what I do. I look up stuff and find out stuff." She says, "Well, we'll get to your issue as soon as we can. It should be quite quick, but we're pretty stowed under at the moment because it's a new Labour government." And I says, "Oh, do you need any help?" And she says, "Oh, I'll keep you in mind."
Nice.
So it's tentative, but
these sorts of volunteering is how you get in, right? Talk to a few people, and let them know you're being serious, and they'll be more likely to bring you on.
I'm really good at research, looking up stuff. It really pisses people off on big screen. I love it.
All right. I'm using my understanding of information technology and computer systems and applying my understanding of this conversation. Streamer says facts.
I like facts.
Very cool. News.
What have you got?
On to news.
It's gone.
Anyone got news of the day that isn't just god awful that we want to talk about?
I just gave you some.
Oh yeah, there you go. Fantastic, Andy.
What more do you got? You don't want much, do you?
All right.
Cool. I think
Well-
we're good for tonight, right?
With that, we appreciate the folks who come to see us and those who come to the room, our volunteers. I need to shut up, but we started talking about science, and I just can't stop.
Yeah, yeah.
I love
Well, I
science.
mean, that's your...
I like hearing
Always,
about
I
science.
love when they talk science.
Yeah.
Tell me the new
Yeah,
theories.
Nick-
Murph, I added myself as a
Find a new
teacher
theories
role
and
as
tell me
well.
Oh
in
yeah, I
the
forgot to
Discord.
do that. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And
Well, I can do it myself now.
private military. I'm not familiar with that big.
Oh.
I will look up that news so that we can talk about it. If you come to our Discord and post into the news,
Yeah,
then we'll
think,
bring it up
yeah,
and
I
talk about
think
it.
he just joined our Discord.
Thanks, Max. Me too. Oh no, it wouldn't be a shadow cabinet. It'd be the actual cabinet because Labour's in power.
There you go. Cool. In the U.S., when we say shadow cabinet, what we mean is the secret cabinet. That's the real spooky government.
Deep state.
Oh, the deep state.
Yeah.
Deep
Snap.
state.
Me and you're starting to think alike. I'm starting to get worried. You're casting curses on my headset and my computer, and we're saying each other's
That's
words.
true.
God, it might be it's time for a fourth wife.
No, no, thank you.
Really afford that many sheds?
Yeah. No, I've got a proper wife. I've got a best friend wife. I've got a big screen wife, which is Ginger, and
And Muslims casting
I'm
curses?
interviewing. Hey.
I'm interviewing Merc. All right, I think that this has gone too far.
I'm sorry, Andy. You're older than my real dad.
You're older than my...
Translation something about curses.
It's only in a
Casting
platonic
curses on you?
sense. Oh, he
Oh.
left.
Oh,
Never
okay.
said a word and left.
Okay, well, good.
No, I mean he did. He said the words that were wrong, and then he left.
A little bit.
And
I
just
love
so
it, though.
everybody knows, when like femtoseconds is not feminine seconds. I know he wanted to bring up gender.
What?
Yeah, with the
It's
social
not-
sciences, these damn
it's
woke
not feminine
scientists.
It's
With
a
their
much
feminine
shorter-
seconds.
much shorter duration than microseconds. Literally, like if a microsecond were blown up to half a human lifetime, like 1 microsecond, half a human lifetime, I think a femtosecond, according to this article I looked at, would be equivalent to a single second.
Wow.
That's how different there is between a millionth of a second and a femtosecond, which is a quadrillionth of a second.
Nice.
It's 10
Yep.
to the negative what?
A femtosecond is 10 to the negative 15 seconds.
Okay, 15.
And
I was thinking
microsecond, I think, is
32.
10 to the negative 9th, or not 9th, 6th. I have to check that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's really handy to have the total sum of human knowledge at your fingertips.
Yes.
I love Perplexity.ai.
When
I
it's
always tell it to start with a
used-
peer-reviewed research.
When it's used, Andy, a lot of
Yeah,
people
well,
think the internet is for porn, you know? So.
On that note, good night, guys. Please
Good
join
night,
the
everybody.
Also, follow if you
Enjoy
guys
your
are
internet.
watching. Follow. It looks like we have a lot of viewers, and I don't know if you're robots or not, and it would be nice to know.